Today we are doing our presentation on the villain Hush, otherwise known as Thomas Elliot. So the comic Hush was quite confusing because of Hush trying to keep his identity hidden, but the sequel comics help make the storyline a bit more clear. So um, the character Hush was in the comic Batman Hush, so that is the main one. Um, then there are sequels. So the main sequels include um, Hush Returns, and then a trilogy, which is Heart of Hush, Hush Money, House of Hush. Another sequel is Hush Beyond. So, Hush was a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne. His real name is Thomas Elliot. Like Bruce, he was also born into a rich family in the city of Gotham. So the comic here that I found says, "We met at school, our lockers were next to each other. Hey, look at that. We both got the two first names for our last names." Not many of the other children spoke to me, though the Wayne fortune had a way of intimidating people. Nothing intimidated Tom. So although Elliot despised his parents, Elliot's parents were not as loving as Bruce's, and he wanted freedom. So he tried to kill his parents, but only ended up killing his father because Bruce's dad saved Elliot's mother because he was a world-class surgeon. As a result of this, Elliot's mother became very controlling and never let him leave her side. When becomes Hush out of extreme jealousy, he makes it his goal to torment Batman. You find out at the end of the story how he orchestrates all these villains to tear down Bruce's life bit by bit. Again, Bruce got the life Elliot wanted. Bruce's parents died, so he acquired all their money and was free to do with it what he wanted. In the end, we find out that the Riddler is the mastermind behind it all. The Riddler used Elliot to destroy Bruce because Elliot knew him personally, so he could personally attack Bruce. The Riddler guides the plan as well as helps coordinate the villains, but lets Elliot take the lead. Throughout the comic, multiple villains wore a trench coat and bandages around their face to confuse Batman and make him wonder who Hush really is. And the audience also doesn't know who Hush is until the end of the comic. So there are many character traits that make up Hush. First of all, he is deeply jealous and obsessive of Bruce. He wants everything that Bruce got, and so because of this, he tries to ruin Bruce's life and then becomes Bruce. He also is very intelligent. Hush is a very good surgeon and could be considered a genius. He makes detailed plans and anticipates others' moves. He is unlike the Joker because he wants things to go according to his own plan. Elliot in some way blames Bruce for his mother being saved, and because of this is trying to destroy his life. In this way, Elliot is terribly vengeful, wanting payback. In the sequel comics, Elliot is obsessed with Batman and decides he needs to become Batman. So Elliot gives himself plastic surgery to make himself look like Bruce Wayne.
Dr. Thomas Eliot often quotes Aristotle as Hush, and you'd think that'd make this easy to figure out what his entire philosophy is. Just look at Aristotle. But no, his philosophy is a lot more interesting than that. It's not just Aristotle, it's a mixture of things from Aristotle and more. But we'll focus on what he quotes from Aristotle for now. The first thing he says is, "We make war that we may live in peace." This is Aristotle's view on war, and what is the purpose of war? To live in peace, and it's how he defends war in general. When Hush says this, he is looking at a newspaper article about Bruce Wayne's life being saved by Dr. Thomas Elliot, which it's himself. He's Thomas Elliot. But that's a comic thing, and that aside, what he's meaning here is twofold. This is his first stone thrown in the war, is getting Batman, Bruce Wayne, injured And now he has himself in Bruce Wayne's life again. But there's a second meaning. Because if he wants to get back at Bruce Wayne, because that's part of his deal is he wants revenge, why would he save his life? Well, in this case, when he's saying we make war to make peace, he's kind of referring to that act of saving Bruce Wayne's life as war, a not good action, so that he can have his peace, which is revenge. It's very interesting, because if Bruce Wayne is dead, he can't torment him and torture him by getting at the people he cares about. And it matters most that he torments Bruce Wayne. Now, the second quote Hush brings up is, what is a friend? A single soul dwelling in two bodies. This is a few things. Now, happens immediately after Hush kills one of Bruce Wayne's few friends, a man by the name of Harold. He's the man who helped build the Batcave, built a lot of the gadgets and tech, but Harold's mute. Dr. Thomas Elliot, however, is a very good doctor and gave him the ability to speak back. So Elliot kills Harold as Hush and then proceeds to say this to Batman. It's mostly a clue to his identity. That this one really just serves as a clue. He's both Thomas Elliot and he's Hush, one person, two people at the same time. It's also how he views Bruce Wayne, which leads into the next one of the next quotes. He views Bruce Wayne as his friend, and if a friend is a single soul dwelling in two bodies, those should be really close together, right? They should have everything they want, should be right next to each other. And we'll see how Elliot twists that idea to further his own goals. The next quote of his is, evils draw men together. This is another clue quote. He's referring to how several of Batman's enemies have united in this Hush thing. And it's a wide variety of people involved. It's Riddler as the mastermind, who told Thomas Elliot who Bruce Wayne was really, because that would get Thomas Elliot to help him. And the Joker got in it because he thought it was really funny to make Batman feel the pain of losing Robin again. Then he also managed to get people like Poison Ivy and Killer Croc involved, and that's all just to get them to get everything moving to hurt Batman. And a lot of these villains were just pawns in this bigger game, and some of them knew, some of them didn't, and eventually some of them betrayed it. Two-Face does not play by the game's rules in the end. The last quote I have for you that Hush says from Aristotle is, we should behave to our friends as we would wish our friends to behave to us. It's another variation of the golden rule, but with a major difference being that instead of it, we should behave to others, it's just our friends. This is the most important one to getting into what Elliot truly believes. Hush says this because he's jealous. He's jealous of Bruce Wayne. He's jealous that Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered in an alley and that Bruce Wayne got to become a rich orphan at a very young age. And before that happened even, before Bruce Wayne's parents died, Hush tried to kill his own parents. The Elliots were in a car crash. And Dr. Thomas Wayne managed to save Elliot's mother, but not his father. And at the time frame, this led to a break between Bruce Wayne and Thomas Elliot. Bruce assumed, and Elliot helped portray this lie by acting, really, that it was all because Bruce's father couldn't save Thomas's father. But it wasn't about that. Because as Elliot says in their great confrontation, when he finally confronts Bruce Wayne, Elliot says that he wishes his mother had died too. But instead he had to wait for her to die of cancer before he could get all her riches, because that's what he wanted. He saw it as his. And that's what he believes. If something is his, he can do anything in his right to get it. And he believes that Bruce should have helped him get it. He believes that Bruce should have somehow helped him kill his mother. It's a very twisted way of thinking, and it doesn't, I mean, logic doesn't follow here, obviously, but it goes back into that what is a friend? He thinks that Bruce should have been known him well enough to help him in this task, and he blames Bruce for his father's actions out of jealousy. It's very, very twisted, and it's far more along the lines of Rousseau and his whole chains and the chains of social relationships than anything Aristotle said. Aristotle here is just a scapegoat. He uses Aristotle because people think Aristotle's an okay guy, not because he actually believes in Aristotle's statements.
In the comic of Hush, there are a lot of Rousseau's ideas in philosophy that one might be able to pick out of it. The first one that you might see is how Rousseau believes that humans are naturally good, but society corrupts them. Eliot was born good, but he grew up with controlling parents. There's a Rousseau quote that says, "Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains." In Eliot's mind, he was in chains because he wanted his parents' money but couldn't have it. He wasn't allowed to go out and do what he wanted, but instead had to stay and be right by his mother's side at all times. In Eliot's mind, he was a prisoner to his mother. There's a comic that I found that says, Bruce is talking. He says, "A couple of times last year, we suggested we meet up in Venice while I was studying in Europe." Venice, Eliot says. "It must be nice having the freedom to write yourself a ticket anywhere you want to go. No family to hold you back." "Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce, but you know my life here, my mother needs me." And then Bruce says, "It's not like we're still kids. She could hire a caretaker for a few weeks." Then Elliot responds by saying, "Could, but won't. Mother controls the purse strings. I have her word she'll let me go away to med school, but until that day comes, she owns me." This comic shows that Elliot was controlled by his mother for a long time. However, when he was at such a young age, Elliot tried to kill his parents. So was that really because of how he grew up, or is there something wrong with him from the beginning? In a way, you could say that he challenges what Rousseau says because of his wish for his parents to be dead at such an early age. Rousseau believed that society is what creates jealousy. As soon as people started to have their own property and houses, they started comparing themselves to others, which is what created jealousy. This leads to competition and wanting to be better than others. One might say that this could be applied to Elliot. Bruce grew up in a similar rich home to Elliot. When they were younger, they were friends, but then Elliot became insanely jealous of Bruce. He was jealous of how much freedom Bruce had when his parents died. While Bruce could go out and use his parents' money for whatever he wanted, Elliot had to stay at home with his controlling mom. Elliot tried to kill his parents, but Bruce's dad saved his mom, and that's another reason why Elliot hates Batman. Rousseau talks about how this jealousy can easily lead to resentment and conflict. Now, that is exactly what happened to Elliot. Now, this comic is kind of blurry, but I did write it down so I can read it. "Despite the best efforts of Dr. Thomas Wayne, my father died while my mother survived. I would never forgive Wayne for allowing even one of them to live. After an intense rite of reconstructive surgery, he had mother moved here to Sacred Heart Hospital. To allay suspicions, I still played the part of the grieving son, and accompanying me in the hour of my need was the doctor's own boy, my childhood friend Bruce Wayne. Thanks for coming, Bruce. It means a lot to me and to Mom, of course." "Forget it, Tommy. What are friends for?" says Bruce. Rousseau believes that the ideal person reinvents themselves whenever they feel like it. They create their own identity. This is exactly what Hush did, but to an extreme level. He became Hush and then later gave himself surgery to look like Batman. He borrowed parts from other people's faces to make himself look like Batman. Elliot believed that whatever he wanted to become was right and true, and no one could tell him that it wasn't okay. His only priority was pleasing himself instead of thinking about others and how his actions affect other people. That is just a few ways that um, Hush connects to Rousseau.
Hush's legacy is a little interesting. It's a very famous comic run when Hush was initially introduced, and very popular by all accounts. But how he affected Batman is kind of subtle because of who Batman is. Batman is a deeply distrusting person. He just doesn't trust people. And what Hush does most is to make him trust even less. And to the point that the one thing he thinks he can trust, himself, is no longer something he can trust. And this is all because Elliot managed to stick a tracker in his head and to also put a little program in his computer that would just flash an image of Thomas Elliot so that Batman would think of him when he was gravely wounded. And he did. He thought of him. And he thought that it was his own decision, but it wasn't. It was a subconscious decision created by these flashing images that he had been seeing for years before this point. And once Thomas Elliot was back in his life, Bruce went right back to trusting him as his best friend. And when that trust was overturned, when he realized who Elliot truly was, it led to catastrophic results in his life, and his ability to trust. We can see his trust, which it's a whole issue on my part of who he chooses to trust, but we can see his trust grow in when he first faces Hush, because he's in that same series of issues. He learns to trust Catwoman, and he gets to the point that he reveals his identity to her. And at the end of everything, though, despite everything, he pushes her away because he no longer can trust that much. Elliot's ruined that for him. And while I kind of don't think he should trust Catwoman, she's been a criminal a lot. She's stolen a lot. But that's personal preference aside. A lot of the writers really like to put Batman and Catwoman together. But another interesting thing here is that Dr. Thomas Elliot shares the profession and first name of Bruce's father, Dr. Thomas Wayne. And at first, you kind of assume that he was kind of inspired to become that doctor by Thomas Wayne. And you assume that it was seeing his mother's life be saved that led him down this path to become a famous and really good doctor who can cure a man who's never spoken and fix Two-Face's face. Because he does both of those things really well. But it's interesting to see that from Batman's perspective. Because what he sees is a man who reminds him of his father. And that man betrays him. Yet another thing that shakes his trust to his core is now he feels like he can't trust his father. And that's not really fully explored, and I mean, his father's already dead, but it shakes him. And it's more of a subtext level thing, but I think it's really cool and really well done. And overall, Hush is a fun villain. He's a manipulator. He plays Batman like a fiddle. And that's fun to see when Batman is meant to be this really smart character, and you have someone smarter than him that he has to learn how to face.